podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
A pinch of hope to handfuls of doom. That's no recipe for success. Hello and welcome to the Manchester United Weekly Podcast. I'm Harry Robinson, sitting in the shadow of Old Trafford and joined this week by Nathan Thomas, a United fan who I stand next to every week on the Stretford End and occasionally in some far-flung places as glamorous as Munich, Seville and even North London. Also on today's show, some brighter news. Manchester United women return to action in the Women's Super League with victory at Aston Villa. We'll play Guess the Player. I'll give you your regular extensive academy briefing and we'll preview Tuesday's match against Galatasaray. Plus, our patrons will get their bonus section with a Q&A. Nathan, there are 1,000 ripples in the canal next to us here and the rain continues to fall after a pretty miserable Manchester weekend. The wet weather certainly didn't help the post-match feeling of depression on Saturday. I think we said that to each other at the time, that I've not felt as flat at Old Trafford at full time as that in a very long time, and Old Trafford hasn't felt that flat overall.
Yeah, it was pretty grim, wasn't it, really? I think obviously it's been a very difficult few weeks really since the start of the season, but I think as you say, when we've spoken about it before, and my feeling was certainly that in the games that we've had this season, even in defeats, I found things to be positive about. You know, there was obviously lots of mitigating factors with injuries, and I've kind of felt, look, there's issues here, we'll come through it, and I do ultimately still feel very positive in the fact that Ten Hag will get this right. But it was really tough to watch. I think even how much of a glass half full red I am.
I was going to say, you're still saying very positive. After this starts the season.
Look, it's true. But it was, even I found it very difficult to get anything from Saturday's performance. I think it was just so uninspiring. Palace didn't even have to be that good, did they, to win the game? And my brother said to me after, he said he almost knew within the first 5 or 10 minutes of the second half we're not winning this game. And I think that's the heaviest indictment on this United team at the moment, because that's almost the most un-United element of a team where. If we're a goal in it, no matter how we've played, we'll have chances at the end to get it back, and it just never looked like it.
Yeah, so short of ideas. It's one of the things Jack always says at the start of games. You can tell what kind of United's going to come out. And in fairness, I don't think we've had that this season as much. It was always one of the things he criticised Solskjaer's United for. I don't think we've seen it as much. But there was a period in the second half where it felt like the kind of classic United juggernaut of the comeback juggernaut was going to pay off again, and we might not have deserved it. It felt like that for a bit, and I think that's what made it so much more frustrating. That it wasn't even. I don't think it was frustration at full time. I think that's what's always concerning. I remember, what would it be, in October 2021 or late September? There were 2 games under Solskjaer where we lost to Villa and drew to Everton, or maybe the other way around.
No, I think that was right, yeah.
And after both, it wasn't anger, it wasn't frustration. There was a bit of sadness. It just felt flat.
Yeah,
it was lacking emotion to such an extent that you started worrying. And I think that's what I had at full time, where the reaction was so kind of nothing that you start thinking this could be the start of a bad run for Ten Hag.
100%. I think, alluding back to my perceived positivity at the start of this podcast, I think what I was trying to say there is it feels very similar to that period after going into Solskjaer's third full season, and I think the difference then is, I think you sum up what I was feeling then perfectly, and there was also a real sadness with it being Ollie, who we all loved. But I think there was a feeling with most of us that we loved him, we wanted him to succeed, but deep down, is this job a bit too big for him? I think we all felt that a little bit. So what I was trying to say earlier is, with Ten Hag, I feel like, look, there is a lot going wrong at the moment, and he has got a lot to get right quick. But I look at him, particularly how he was in his first season. His career in football gives me more confidence that we've got a better placed manager to change things. But it's worryingly familiar, and there's no escaping that. Yeah,
and he did such a good job last season, and he left us feeling so encouraged. And the credit in the bank that he's got is probably doing more for you than it is for many supporters right now. I feel that people are different in what they think about, not even what they think about football, but how they react to defeat. And There is a lot of fickleness in football, we know that, but I think a couple of days on from the game, this is always the case, isn't it? Like, you're now thinking, we're 7 league games in, it's been really poor, but we're absolutely ravaged by injuries, hamstrung by the ownership, and Ten Hag needs to be better, but I do trust that he's the right man, absolutely. And you also think, how many times did people doubt even Sir Alex? There were fans calling for Klopp to be sacked a year ago in a bad spell. Now look at Liverpool. You can give good managers time, and you trust them and support them, and it can have such a good effect. Even David Moyes at West Ham had such a bad spell. Next thing you know, they're winning the Europa Conference League, and West Ham backed him. I think people were surprised that West Ham backed Moyes. I certainly was. Well, especially after seeing what Moyes did just down the road here. And then you look at the clubs who regularly change their managers. Chelsea, that's going well. Everton, Wolves, and so on. But I think you're right, not just in feeling, but also the challenge for Ten Hag now is somewhat similar to one that Solskjaer failed at.
Absolutely.
And Ten Hag managed to get that really good season quicker than Ole did. He also managed to win a trophy, got the monkey off his back that we've spoken about a lot, and that gives him a lot of credit. But he's facing that question, can you have success at United without just resorting to pragmatism? The problem I have at the start of this season is he's still resorting to pragmatism but without the results. But I'm aware that's kind of forced by injuries. He obviously doesn't want to play Sofyan Amrabat at left back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because there's an element of, can you truly judge it until he's got his preferred selection? But as I think Ten Hag's alluded to before, I don't think he's ever picked his preferred 11. So for whatever reason, and maybe that's just life at a big club, that sometimes you've got to work through these problems. And I think everything you said is spot on. I think he was pragmatic last season, realised that he wasn't going to be able to implement what he wanted straight away, but it was about getting results, restoring the mood, winning a trophy as it turned out. And now he's trying to do that again, in much in the same way as I think Solskjaer was trying to do in the early stages of 2021.
Then Ronaldo came.
Exactly. So I think
it's a similar thing. Hamstrung by injuries this season, and Solskjaer was hamstrung by Ronaldo. One was an addition, the other this is many subtractions, but it has similar impact on what you can do with your team.
100% it does. And I think again, if you're looking at it, trying to look at it a little bit more positively, that I think whatever Solskjaer had in mind to do in that summer of 2021, I don't think his signings reflected it, nor did the personnel in his team at that time. As we know, I'm sure Ten Hag would have preferred the makeup of his squad to be different.
Frenkie de Jong.
Exactly, but it's closer and more suited to what he wants to do. I think the issue that we've got is obviously with the injuries and constant flux of personnel, that you're just not going to build any rhythm, which is proving difficult. This is going to take a little bit of time, but ultimately you need to start getting results. And I think Crystal Palace at home against a pretty underwhelming Crystal Palace at home.
They weren't even good.
Exactly. That was what was most disappointing about it. Did they have one other chance, one other shot on goal maybe, aside from the goal that they had? And we barely laid a glove on them. And I wasn't even, obviously there was the penalty controversy, if you want to call it that, with the handball. I wasn't even bothered about that because we'd done so little to deserve any good fortune.
While on the referee, and the only thing that bothered me was they started the season so well in how they dealt with time wasting. And some people found it frustrating, but I loved it. It was starting to have an impact, and then
they've lost it now, haven't they?
Lost it straight. 4 minutes added on at the end, and that just added the greyness, the trams being shite, and United being shite. Plus, seeing 55 minutes of football, no more than that. I hate coming away from games. And I felt undersold by United because United weren't good enough. But I also hate coming away feeling undersold in general. That the refs, the way that the ref has acted has led to a worse game. And I felt that. Ultimately, this game was another one. And listeners, you included, will have heard Jack and I talk about this team being one that's reliant on fine margins so often. And that's the case again this season. This is another example of that. It's a team defined by fine margins. Almost all of those fine margins this season, except Andre Onana clattering someone against Wolves, have gone against us. Crossbar, type offside calls, injuries, VAR calls, subjective penalty decisions, bad penalty decisions. It's all going against us. But I think, again, we've kind of gone into a bit of positivity. But my problem with Ten Hag this year is that last year when things went against us, he made United's life easier in what he said and how he acted in his management of players. It now feels like he's making things harder for himself and inviting the pressure on. And when we were in the pub on Saturday, we came back to the fact that like Donny van der Beek came on over Hannibal. What's he doing?
It just feels like when you said before about being stood waiting for the tram in the pissing rain, and there's been so many deja vu moments at United over the past 10 years, and mostly for the poorer. I remember being sat on Chester Road waiting for a bus in 2013 after we just lost at home to Southampton against, and this was Moyes' first season. So I feel like it was a 2-1 defeat maybe. I think it was the day that Januzaj's contract had just been confirmed.
Right.
So we'd lost, and I remember sat with Arkir and my brother, who Harry knows, who comes with us to the games, and saying to him something along the lines of, it won't get much worse than this, kid. And here we are, a decade later.
In fairness, we still haven't finished lower than we did that season.
Well, that's true. So maybe there was some truth in my words.
Whenever anyone tries to like compare current managers or like Ten Hag, also whoever to Moyes, you've got to remember it's still not got worse than that, despite everything that's happened.
That is true. And I think just to bring it back onto your original point, I think you're right with Ten Hag. I think there's things that he could be doing, and I'll even say. With regards to refereeing decisions, people lose their heads about Klopp calling things out, but sometimes as a manager you've got to stir that pot, and I think the amount that's gone against United this season, particularly following the just uproar.
Like Bruno Fernandes speaking about it after the Spurs handball. I thought that was great.
Yeah, exactly. United have missed sometimes that siege mentality of and calling it out, and given the collective losing of the shit after that, the Onana incident against Wolves, which was just kind of a ridiculous stop press moment, that United almost need to get a little bit more savvy and a bit wily in that sense, and start calling out these things. Now obviously that's not going to wash after a miserable 1-0 defeat against Crystal Palace, but it's indicative of just things like you say, the fact that Hannibal didn't get any minutes was very
it's
peculiar.
Also like part of the mentality, or not the mentality, the atmosphere at United at the moment feels like everything's going wrong. Instead of, and it's obviously a false thing, but if you can turn everything's going wrong into everyone's against us, let's see what happens, is the tactic most football managers have used at all times. Some of them in slightly different ways. Some are kind of a soft approach towards that. Some, like Mourinho and Ferguson, were kind of the most extreme examples of that, but it does work. And we also said that Ten Hag needs to be a bit more creative. Like Amrabat at left back didn't work. Rashford is playing poorly, partly because of himself, and maybe we'll come on to him in more depth in a second, but partly because of the system. And Ten Hag, I liked when we played with the diamond. I can't remember who it was against.
It was against...
Was it the Burnley game?
It was the Burnley game, yeah.
I like that. That was a bit of and I know another left back's got injured since.
Yeah.
And it's the worst lot you can imagine. With first choice left back getting injured, then your backup, then the man you find to replace him. You've sent 2 out on loan, and then even as well as that, the one centre back who can play left back as well in Sancho Martinez also gets injured. So, and Dalot could play left back, but Wan-Bissaka's injured, so he can't because he has to play at right back. All of these things. Ten Hag's dealing with all sorts of shit. But you just want to see him. After praising him for the pragmatism of last year, it feels being risk averse now will lose him his job.
Well, this is
eventually. I don't think it's coming or anything like that. But he needs to show his qualities as a manager rather than just trying to see this out, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think the injuries I feel haven't probably been given enough credence in terms of how disruptive they've been, given the wealth of them, I would say, up until the Palace game. But then you've pretty much got your full complement of midfielders in that game. Of course, I understand the way that the game builds up from the back, and he's not got his preferred plays there. But, if you go to the Emirates and do all right, and you're a kneecap offside away from winning the game, you can say, look, disappointing, one of those things. But Palace at home, not being able to create anything. And like you say, I think just even the bringing on of Anthony Martial and Donny van der Beek, you want, as a supporter, you want a lift from your subs, right? Okay, we've got some, he's coming on, whoever it is, and that you just immediately see him and you just think it is just sort of, it's almost a deflating feeling. You know what's coming, don't you? And again, that's not necessarily like their fault. It's the environment at the moment. Well,
in one of their cases, it is their fault.
Yeah.
But we were also saying that it's the fact Ten Hag. It's kind of this idea of having a ruthless clear out at United.
Yeah.
It's not ruthless if you then play the players, 2 months into the season?
Yeah.
At the very end of September. If Ten Hag doesn't see a future for Van der Beek and Martial at United, don't play them. Play a kid instead. Especially when there's a kid who's just had 3 very good games against Brighton, Burnley and Palace in Hannibal.
Yeah.
Scoring in one of them, providing a fantastic opportunity for Rashford against Burnley, doing the basics in a very solid manner. It just seems... I don't know. It's the kind of thing that I thought Ten Hag wouldn't do.
No, I agree, and I suppose in Martial's case, he would probably say to you, "Well, look, I was hoping to move him on, but for the time being, I'm happy to make use of him in the squad." He started most games, didn't
probably
he?
less him than
but Van der Beek, definitely,
yeah.
And I think you look at it and you think that. Going back to last season, and Ten Hag wanted to restore the camaraderie between players, support between players even. And in the early parts of the season, when you've got defenders like high-fiving, and that seems to have gone a little bit. And it can't be helped if you've got a group of players who knew that they were for the chopping block in the summer.
Yeah.
Now are still being called upon to play, and it just feels like that's gone a little bit.
There's quite a few of them.
Exactly.
Even
is.
McTominay, who should be used because he can be useful.
Yeah.
But that's someone who thought he was leaving.
Yeah.
McTominay, Maguire, Van der Beek, Martial. Those are 4 players who are all involved on Saturday.
And I think that goes back to sort of what I think is really the narrative at the moment, which is obviously quite rightly question marks to Ten Hag and his selection and his choice of tactics, but obviously issues around the club with regards to recruitment and the moving on of players that makes things harder, along with the injuries. And again, this is not exonerating anything, but it's building up a picture of a lot going wrong at the same time, which makes life incredibly difficult if you're trying to win football matches. But again, this is Crystal Palace at home, who are missing a considerable amount of players anyway, I think.
Yeah.
And to lose in such uninspiring fashion is, all of this stuff, yes, needs to be taken into account, but it doesn't excuse it, and he has got to start getting results and getting them quickly.
Yeah. All right, guess the player clue 1. As a reminder for people who haven't heard the game before, 3 clues of a current or former Manchester United player or staff member, so manager, coach, or whatever. Clue 1 is normally fairly hard, and if you get it off this, I'll be very impressed.
Okay.
This is Nathan's first time playing a game on the show. Apparently, he's very good in his car when he listens.
See, this is what I've told him, but this is where I haven't thought if I ever end up on the podcast, as I am now, that I'm going to fail.
You'll have a blank, yeah.
So let's see.
Under the pressure, under the floodlights of hotel football. Guess the player clue 1. I scored 97 goals for Manchester United. I scored 97 goals for Manchester United.
That's the clue.
That's it, yeah.
Wow, that is a tough one. Get me back in my car, that's all I'm saying. Okay, so
he's on away ground. He's like United's players away from home.
I know, really, that's what I feel like. So I've got a few ideas just based on the number, but absolutely no way would I commit at this stage.
Yeah, fair enough. Marcus Rashford, who scored more goals than that for Man United. I don't know how many now, but he's over 100. I know that for sure. Anyway, is he over 100? I think he is. Yeah. I remember him hitting it last season. And he hit 30 last season, so he must be. A lot of stick. There's always quite a lot of stick for Rashford at Old Trafford. There's a lot of stick for him online. I've had even my Arsenal supporting mates. I've had a Motherwell supporting mate. All my mates who don't support United and so shouldn't be seeing that much United content on their Twitter feeds, for example, is full of hate towards Marcus Rashford. Which is interesting.
Are they flagging the fact that they're seeing this content? Right, they're not necessarily calling Rashford out themselves, but they're seeing it.
No, they just said, have you seen? Or why? They hadn't seen the game, so they said, why is everyone criticising Rashford so much? And I said, well, he had a pretty poor game, and then they showed me quite how extreme some of it was, and I thought, well, it wasn't that bad. But I think this is a common trend that is, in a similar way to the fact that Would you call last season overachieving? Sorry, this is me going off on a tangent, but did Ten Hag overachieve last season?
Yeah, I would say he did.
Okay, so Ten Hag overachieving last year has made it more difficult for him this year. In one way, right now. In another way, also, if he hadn't overachieved last season and this happened right now, he probably would have been sacked, or would be about to be sacked. So anyway, that's a side conversation. All I was going to say is, in the same way, Rashford having such a good season last year, but also in previous seasons, he has this kind of thing where he floats from being United's kind of talisman and leader of a good team to then being the scapegoat as soon as things go wrong. And it's because good Rashford, good United. Bad Rashford, bad United. Now, which one of those is to blame for the other? Obviously, they're codependent. But I do think that United were too reliant on Rashford last season. We knew that. That's why we had to sign a striker. Ten Hag knew that. What I'm concerned about is even the way that the team's set up right now is everything is directed to Rashford. And it doesn't then help that there's no left back, because Rashford's suddenly facing up against three players. No one's really going to do well out of that. We saw when Garnacho came on, he didn't have much more luck. And Garnacho, in those situations, is probably in a better patch of form than Rashford, and he still didn't have any luck. So, I don't know. What do you make of it? Because where we sit in Old Trafford, the amount of abuse and stick Rashford's get is pretty consistent.
It really is, isn't it? And at times, I'm not saying at the moment, but at times unjustified. And I think it does. There is an element, I think, and this has been as old as time, and I'm sure going further back than when I followed United. But there is extra emphasis and focus, I think, placed on good, well, homegrown players full stop, but certainly homegrown players that go.
People always said that Giggs got all the stick.
Yeah, he did. I remember him getting booed against Arsenal in the Cup 2003. This is when he skied. I mean, he'd been in poor form for quite a few weeks and skied an open miss. It was a game where Fergie kicked the boot at Beckham. And accidentally kicked the boot at Beckham.
Yeah, allegedly.
And he missed an open goal in that match, and that was kind of the culmination. And this is Ryan Giggs. By which point he'd already surely solidified his status as United legend. Darren Fletcher, obviously, again, not quite in the talent sphere of Ryan Giggs, but I remember him copying for a lot of abuse. And I don't know, I think that is an element of it, but we are seeing, I think, at the moment, I wonder with Rashford sometimes. I remember there was a period of, maybe around the Rangnick time, I can't remember, but there was a period where he played through an injury for a long time. Yeah. He looks a little bit like that again. So I wonder if he's the type of player where he needs to be feeling, I don't know, at least 85% fit to be able to go at his normal rate.
He said it constantly throughout last season, like how nice it was to feel fully fit and be able to play like that. Yeah. And so you might be right, but I've noticed a couple of knocks. I remember there was a clip going around, and this is part of the problem with watching. It's no one's fault for watching on TV, but part of the thing you don't see on TV that the commentators should be telling you, and often aren't, is when a player picks up a knock off camera.
Right.
And so there was a clip in the Brighton game, I remember, that was shared widely on Twitter of Rashford not tracking back, or I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember seeing that in the ground, and he'd just had his ankle chopped through, and he was hobbling back, and then went to jog back to try and get involved, but didn't quite have it in him because his leg was hurting. And that's the kind of thing, the context that you don't see. There was a clip going around on Twitter that people were slating him for waiting to walk out last at kickoff.
Yeah.
Which is what he does every game, when he's playing well and when he's playing badly. People just need to get a grip in that sense. But I think this is part of the thing where Ten Hag needs to. Ten Hag is putting too much emphasis on Rashford at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's not helping United, and it's not helping him either.
No, absolutely. And this is the thing, you can. I guess in the one hand, people are getting frustrated because people now view him as the talisman, our most prolific goal scorer last season. But
in fairness, paid better than every other player. So.
Absolutely. But you are looking for. It is, we've brought a centre forward in, Bruno Fernandes. Anthony looks set to return. All these players, you're looking for more. Let's say even if Rashford had started the season in great form, but the goal scoring in terms of being shared was as it is, you'd still be saying we need more from those other players.
Casemiro's a top scorer.
He is, yeah,
by a long way.
Which is again another concerning statistic, and he just it's so I find it kind of quite difficult to find what the truth is with regards to United at the moment, because there's clearly issues in terms of Ten Hag imposing something new. It's not working, whether it's because of him not being adventurous enough. You've got issues with personnel, players maybe haven't found the form yet, last season being so long. There's so many other things that it's so difficult to say, are they just out of form and it's not happening? Are they suffering because X isn't there? It is really difficult at the moment.
But this is why it's like people judging and saying Rashford isn't good enough based off these 9 games in total in all competitions, isn't it? But it's just mad. He's obviously not shit.
I mean,
he scored 30 goals last season.
Like, it's ridiculous, like you say. He was
in the same way that Ten Hag is obviously not shit.
Yeah.
Like,
it does make me laugh. Like say, we went to the pub after the game on Saturday, and there were some very interesting opinions being shared. Obviously, on the negative sense. And look, I think if you'd have spoken to me then, I'd have given you a very different version of how I was feeling. But it amazes you, doesn't it, how things can change one way or the other so quickly. Yeah. If United beat Galatasaray tomorrow, I'm sure you'll find opinions that are too extreme in the positive sense.
Yeah. In fact, that is the problem of being a team reliant on fine margins.
Yeah.
And it's also the problem of being a team who, at the moment, don't show any real identity in how we play.
Yeah.
Because if that was there, and this is what me and Jack have long said with Ten Hag, is that if results are bad, but you're seeing progress in kind of the style of play, you can accept that.
Yeah.
Or the other way around, results are good, but you're not seeing that, which is what last season was.
Yeah.
You need one of those things. You can't have neither. At the moment, we're having neither. That being said, it's very injury inflicted.
I think my kind of thought is that certainly with the last 2 managers, those being permanent managers, Eric and Ollie, that they have inherited a team that is dysfunctional, and they have their own ideas about what they want to do with it. And what they've done is to varying levels have steadied the ship and got United pointing in the right direction.
Alcoholic.
Yeah, exactly, Harry. That's the perfect example. And then,
which I will be soon.
So,
if United keep
yeah, me and you both, mate. I think so. Basically, you look at Ollie after Gdansk. Okay, ended poorly, but generally a positive mood. Last season, again, obviously ended with the FA Cup final, but generally season-wise, you're pointing in the right direction. Then the next step is, can I move that from being pragmatic with what I've got to moving it into a style that's, and so far no one's, and this is almost the big moment with both.
Mourinho didn't even try.
He didn't try. That's why I was saying the last 2. But there's been elements of similarity with every manager, isn't there? They're inheriting something that just does not align with whatever it is they're trying to do, and then attempting to work with that, and then ultimately failing at it. And this is again with Ten Hag. It's that what we were talking about before. Can he turn it? It's not necessarily turn it round. It's like can he make it work?
Yeah.
And that is the big question that we shall find out, won't we?
Yeah, and that is harder than ever to answer because of how many injuries there are. Yeah. It's just so hard to analyse this United team at the moment, but obviously that doesn't fill newspapers, so
no, exactly.
People will have their opinions. We're going to have guest player clue 2 before we go into our bonus Patreon Q&A. As a reminder, the first clue was I scored 97 goals for Manchester United. I assume, Nathan, you're not going to have a wild guess first.
No.
Second clue is I might be the loveliest man to play for Manchester United, but I'm not Juan Mata.
Ooh.
I might be the loveliest man to play for Manchester United, but I'm not Juan Mata.
I've got an idea.
Normally I can't see the cogs whirring in Jack's brain because Nathan is literally sat opposite me. It's quite fun to watch.
Okay, so that's narrowed it down a little bit. I've got one that's very kind of up there, but I'm not sure he scored that many. But
because you're a guest,
okay,
you can just throw names out there.
Okay, right. Okay.
They don't have to be official games.
So one, the main one, the first person who jumped to mind was Dennis Irwin. Set piece taker, penalty taker, lovely bloke, but I'm not convinced he scored 97. Could be wrong. He was the main one. There was a few others floating around. Other being Chucky.
He definitely would have got 97.
Yeah.
But it's not.
It's not Chucky. Okay, I'm gonna go to the final clue,
Yeah,
and then I might have to phone Jack. John, who wants to be a millionaire?
Yeah, I think you get it on the final one.
Okay.
All right, we're going to go into our Patreon Q&A. Everyone else will be back very shortly after this break. Out of the Patreon Q&A, good chat on United's potential lack of activity in the January transfer window, and about the players' mentality and the atmosphere at Old Trafford. You're going to have a quick academy roundup, and then we'll have guess a player clue 3, and then a quick preview of Galatasaray. United's under 21 suffered a chasing in night at Bolton, losing 8-1 in their second EFL Trophy group stage fixture. Academy coaches have emphasised the strength of the team put out by Bolton, and the fact that the first team's clashing fixture prevented them using a couple of players that they'd have liked to. They're fair excuses, but not explanations. The truth is that Bolton were ruthless in a manner that they weren't in last season's knockout tie in the same competition. On that occasion, in December 2022, they won 4-0. They should have scored many more. This time they provided several unstoppable finishes and got a couple of slices of luck. United didn't. It's a bad result. It's a good test for the players to see how they deal with it, but they've clearly got a lot of work to do to reach the level of their League One opposition. They were more at home back in Premier League 2 at the weekend, where they beat Blackburn Rovers 5-2. Dan Gore scored one of the goals after dropping that down after his first team debut. The under-18s also scored 5, beating Newcastle United 5-1, a good result. Ruben Curley and Shea Lacey scored 2 each, with a penalty from Ethan Wheatley. In graduate news, something a bit different, Angel Gomez has started the season very well for Lille in Ligue 1. Laji Ramazani, who's now 22, is the youngest, has become the youngest player to make a hat-trick of assists in La Liga games since Marco Asensio in 2015. I'm pretty sure all 3 of his assists came in about 5 minutes. It was an incredible little spell. Youngest player to do all 3 assists from open play since Bojan in 2010, who is the answer of one of the kind of most common La Liga pub quiz questions.
Interesting. The
question being, who is the top all-time scorer in Barcelona's La Masia Academy?
Wow.
And the answer is not Lionel Messi, it's Bojan.
Wow.
And Kobe Minu was ranked 23rd on 50 young players to watch this season by the excellent website Scouted Football. UEFA Youth League action this week. United lost the first game 2-0 to Bayern Munich in Bavaria. It's a Tuesday 2pm kickoff at Lee Sports Village against Galatasaray. Galatasaray have a few players from Turkey's under-17 side who impressed in the Euros last year. They're quite a strong side. I wonder whether any of Galatasaray's fans will show up to that. If you're interested in going, it's free entry at Lee Sports Village and a 2pm kickoff. I can't remember whether it's on METV or TNT Sports, but it'll be on one of the two. Let's have in loan news, Brandon Williams scored for Ipswich Town in a 1-1 draw against Huddersfield. Alvaro Fernandez came off the bench for Granada. They were 3-0 down at the time, and they drew 3-3 in the end. Will Fish made an assist for Hibs, played 90 minutes for them, kept a clean sheet in the second game as well. Charlotte McNeil not involved for Stevenage. He's had an average start to life at Stevenage in the same way he did at Newport County. Guess the player clue 3.
I'm going to hold you up there, Harry.
Go on.
So I think I have it. I'm not 100% sure I have it. But I figured that I would rather go down in a blaze of,
a blaze of 2-point glory.
Well, no, not in glory. Just I'd rather fall at the second hurdle than go and get it after the third. Okay. So I'm gonna go with Lou Macari.
The final clue was I would have signed for Liverpool if it wasn't for Paddy Crerand.
There we go. Yeah. I don't know what popped into me. I was thinking, who's the loveliest man? And obviously, Harry and I chat about various different United players we've encountered, and then I think I've got a vision in my head of Lou Macari next to 97 goals in some United book somewhere. Yeah. So, and he is a very, very lovely man. Yeah, lovely man. His charity. I partly did it. Nathan works for the Manchester United Foundation, which we'll talk about in a second. I partly thought, which United player's done brilliant charity work? And I didn't want to do a current one because I thought that'd be too easy. But Lou Macari was a decent shout. There's a couple of foundation initiatives coming up, including one against Brentford. That is correct, yeah. So what we're looking for is, for For those people who don't know, some people may have heard me on Harry's podcast a couple of months ago talking about what the foundation do. We work in Greater Manchester and a little bit further afield too, working with young people from slightly tougher backgrounds in tougher areas to essentially give them support in life and help them achieve whatever it is they want to achieve, very much in the spirit of Manchester United and how we look after young lads and young girls from an early age and give them the opportunity to achieve greatness potentially at Old Trafford. So basically in this instance we've consulted with some of our young people, and it was quite sobering to hear them express concerns about the simple element of keeping warm in the winter, which is again a pretty depressing thing to hear from young people, but we've obviously decided that we're going to do something to help there. So the first thing we've done is committed £100,000 towards purchasing warm items, which we'll distribute among our school and project network, but we're also looking for supporters to help out too. So if you've got a big winter coat in your house that you've been kind of gathering dust for a little while and you think I need to move this on, then we're looking for children's and adults coats. If you could bring them in a clean condition, that would be wonderful. But yeah, basically what we want is for the Brentford game and the usual bag drop-off areas, you can bring your coat before the match and also after it as well. Drop it off, and these are going to be distributed largely, as I say, around our partner school and project network. They'll go to a very, very good home, and we've also identified a secondary or an additional charity in the Ukraine who are going to go. These coats will go to similar people in that area. Obviously, still a very turbulent time over there. So yeah, it's a nice thing to get involved with. I know Harry shares my view of the club being a community institution and it should continue to function as one, and this is an opportunity for support to help out if you can. Appreciate on match days it can be difficult just in terms of the logistics of bringing things, but if you can do it, every little helps, so we'd be really appreciative of that.
There's a bag drop area to the left of the foundation building, is that right? Indeed
there is, yeah, and I think I should know this really where they are, but I've never actually
I've only ever seen that one because I walked past it to get to the Stretford Ender Bridge.
That is the main one, St Mattbusby Way, next to the foundation building, can't miss us, big red building, but there are others. I think there's some at the back of the Stretford End car park. They're very clearly signposted, I am told, so that should be it should be quite easy to find those. And yeah, any help that we can have, these coats are going to go to very deserving homes.
Nice. The first game up before that, Galatasaray on Tuesday night. We're in the shadow of Old Trafford. We'll be back here in about 24 hours time. Confident?
They come around quick, don't they? Yeah. My God. Not particularly. I have this thing, I think we touched on it.
I tell you what, I'm glad we're not Galatasaray away.
Oh my God!
Imagine going there in this form.
I know.
Absolutely no chance.
No. I mean, let's just not consider that prospect, shall we? But I can't say I'm a big watcher of Galatasaray, but I know that they've started the league season quite well, I believe, from having read an article earlier today, and obviously they got a draw coming back from 2 behind. We did 2 down against Copenhagen, I think, and then Copenhagen got a man sent off, something like that. So look, I mean, they're a team that could cause us problems, because every team can cause us problems. I don't think you can ever truly go into any game with United as confident. Where it's coming from, I don't know, but I think we're going to win. I think we're going to get the result, but I say that, I think, more with my, as you'll have learnt so far,
very positive hat on.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, it's going to be tough.
I can't see United winning by more than one goal in any scenario.
No,
but that's European home games in general against very good teams. Galatasaray probably aren't a very good team, but they're a good team. They've got some, and any United game against Wilfried Zaha is concerning. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, you feel like they are going to put us under, give us a lot more problems than Palace posed, and Palace went away with a 1-0 win. So that's concerning. And
you'd hope Ten Hag can do what we were speaking about earlier and get that kind of siege mentality and go, look lads, you need to prove a point here.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it, where you feel like United scoring first is even more important, just based on recent, if we go one behind, the mood is not gonna improve quickly in that ground, and
they just need a confidence boost. I was watching a clip earlier of Sir Bobby talking outside Old Trafford and saying, and just it's something that he spoke about a lot, that Sir Matt would always tell his players, like the lads in the stands, you need to give them something to excite them. You need to do something that they can't do, because they've been working on the shop floor all week. They've paid their money that they've earned to come and watch you. Go out and excite them. And people will sometimes oversimplify that and just insist that all Samat would say would be just go out and play. He did sometimes say that, but he was a much better manager than that. Yeah. And we're not expecting Erik ten Hag to just sit him down and say, just go out and play, boys. But he needs to give these players confidence and say, look, go out and you're brilliant players, go out and like entertain the fans who have come and paid to watch you and to come and support you.
I think what was particularly sort of peculiar, an extra element with the Palace game at the weekend is how well we'd played in the League Cup. Now, yes, against a much changed team, but ultimately you can only beat who you're up against. United was so far off that on Saturday, you almost felt that was a not quite a turning point, but we need another kind of performance like that.
You need a couple in a row, really.
You do, of course you do.
Unless you're going to win 7-0.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But it is a case of just, doing the job, really. If we can get any kind of performance out of United, fantastic, but it's just about getting the win tomorrow night. And yeah, it's very difficult, I think, to analyse games that United are going into, because you just do not know what you're going to get. Like, okay,
I don't even know who's going to be fit.
Exactly.
3 injuries before tomorrow.
So you can look. The signs are pointing that tomorrow will be a tough night, and it could get worse, but it's a big Champions League night, first Champions League night at Old Trafford in a while. Yeah, the crowd are going to be up for it.
If we were comparing back to the Ole September-October period in 2021 when it was really bad, the Champions League was our saving grace.
Amazing, wasn't it, for a bit?
Villarreal and Atalanta, just these. We played terribly, and then these just incredible comebacks, and those nights gave you that glint of hope, and you thought maybe this could work after all. And they were so. They were special, even though they were Champions League group stages, not even knockouts. So maybe
it feels like
the case this time.
There is certainly not. You don't take. I'm not saying you can take the Champions League for granted, but way back when I remember us getting group stage games when we're guaranteed to be the Champions League. It's like, we're playing such a body, and it's like and now obviously I think going back, Galatasaray at home wouldn't necessarily have been the most appealing of fixtures, but you're going to have 3,000 Turks going absolutely off their head in that away end. I think at the moment, as we've touched upon, there is still a real sort of desire from the crowd to get behind this team and try and push them on, rather than it kind of teetering in the other direction. Hopefully that will work in our favour, and if we can get behind them and get a good early start, that would help everybody. But we'll see.
What do you think the Galatasaray fans will make of Old Trafford? No Tier A section running.
I know, it's so disappointing. Yeah, I just hope they go to League.
Not exactly welcome to hell, is it?
Not exactly. No, not exactly. But you mentioned before about them if they wanted to go and watch the under 19s game. I don't know if they do sarcasm in Turkey, but I would highly recommend a visit to Leigh. I once went to a phone party there and it was fantastic.
Phone party?
Oh yeah, a phone party in Leigh. So get yourself down to Leigh Sports Village before you come and watch the Champions League match. But yeah, it's very disappointing we've not got TRA for this one. I think the atmosphere will be good. I think Champions League night, but particularly given the situation, it is a real shame that we've not got that end opposite.
Yeah.
The Galatasaray fans.
Final thing to end on a positive: the Women's Super League started again, and Manchester United. We were saying about the lack of that kind of comeback juggernaut for the men's team, but the women's team provided it. And Rachel Williams, Jack and I spoke about her last season. I love these players, these veteran players who kind of have an inevitability about them, and it seems every time United need a goal, Rachel Williams comes off the bench and just pops up again and scores it. So United 2-1 against Villa to start the season, having looked like they were going to lose the game. 2 goals in the final 10, maybe 15 minutes. But yeah, some positives. I didn't watch the game live, but sounds like a decent start for United, who were coping without Onabache left in summer. Leslie Russo left. Mary-Up stayed, having looked like she might leave. But Geyser Ferreira apparently looked really good in this first game, and Lucia Garcia did well as well. But yeah, good start to the season for them.
It was, and I won't profess to be the most diligent watcher of women's football or United women's football, but I do my best to get as many games as I can, and I'm hoping to improve my record of attendance at Leigh this season, because
it's just such a bad place.
I know, it really is. It is, isn't it? But yeah, I just love the team. I think there's a real togetherness there. I think they're a really, really good group of girls. There's just, as I say, you want them to do well, and they had such a good season last season. It was such a pity they couldn't cap it off with a trophy. But yeah, there's just something incredibly likeable about about everything, to be honest, around the women's setup. It's really encouraging to see, and I'm watching Lucia Garcia bag that late winner. I think it certainly made me smile at the end of what had been an otherwise pretty miserable weekend. So fantastic start for them.
And then go live on BBC Two and say, just so fucking tired.
And it was like, aren't we all? Yeah. But not of you guys.
Summed up United there.
It did.
All right, that's it for this episode of the Manchester United Weekly Podcast. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. If you want to find Nathan's thoughts throughout the week and the rest of the season, you can find him on Twitter at
Nathan L. Thomas.
You can find me at Harry Robinson64 and the podcast itself at UTD Weekly Pod. That's POD at the end there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Have a great week. Goodbye.
Podcast Network.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.